Hello, fellow orchid lovers. It's Danielle here. I hope you've all been well. I have another video for you guys. We are still here at our house upstate, still heavily involved in construction. My orchid room is a mess because it's kind of like a run over for the rest of the house. Whatever we're working on, we kind of throw stuff in here while we're working on it. And currently, we have gutted the kitchen and we're in the process of rebuilding it, which is exciting, but at the same time, a lot of work. And so that's what my husband's doing right now. So if you hear any banging, clanging, drilling, etc., that is him. But I just wanted to share something really quick with you guys. I have a few more plants that opened. And also, I just wanted to share some of the mistakes I made when I moved into my new environment. So let's do the bad news first, and then I'll show you some pretty blooms. So as some of you may remember, I posted in one of my recent videos that I kind of burnt my Tolumnias to a crisp. So one or two of them they have not made it. A few of them, the front fans got a lot of light and they did die back. But the back fans are still green, and so I'm still caring for them as if they're gonna bounce back, not really knowing whether they're not or they are. This one lost everything, but it grew a little growth. So I'm hoping that the other ones will similarly, try to bounce back. And if not, then that's the price I pay. Now, apparently that did not teach me a strong enough lesson. I saw that these had burnt. I moved them back from the light. I thought that everything else was doing fine. And then I saw my Renko stylist last week when I took it down from the shelf to be watered. And it doesn't take someone who really knows much about orchids to see that this plant is also badly burnt. So the back leaves, the older leaves, have really turned very yellow. But these front leaves that were close to the window have also sustained a significant amount of damage. So, I think she'll recover. These leaves will never really be pretty because this is permanent damage. But I think the plant itself will make it through, but I may have set her back a little bit. My Renko stylist never, in my old home, in my old environment, could get enough light. Like I just couldn't give them enough light. So here, because I have this huge window and all of this that's the south right there in that corner. So this gets a lot of light. The sun comes up there and then sets over there. So for a decent portion of the day, this has a lot of light. And when we first moved here, it was still technically winter. And so it wasn't really hurting my plants. But now, as you can see, I put up my sheer curtains that I was using in my other house to protect them. So things like my cattleyas and my dendrobiums, they seem to really like the stronger light, but the other plants like my phalaenopsis and some of my oncidium types are now being protected by that layer, that sheer layer. And I'm keeping an eye on it to make sure that sheer layer is even enough. I might have to double it. I'm not sure, because obviously, it took pretty strong light to do that. So that's something that you want to keep in mind, when you're moving. What kind of light are you getting for your orchids now? Has it changed? Is it the same? Obviously, every single home that you're in is going to be slightly different. Even if the exposure is the same, like let's say you lived in a house and your plants got western exposure and you're moving and the plants are going to get western exposure again. What's the tree cover like? Are there a lot of trees around the house that shade that western exposure, or is it full sun? Like here, we don't have any trees in front of this house. So it's full sun, no shade. So that's something that I failed to take into account. Another thing that you're going to want to think about, which I didn't think about myself, is, for instance, where I lived on Long Island, we had water that was, city water. Here it's well water, so there's no chlorine in my water. There's nothing to kill the algae. So whereas on my house on Long Island, I could use tap water if I felt like it, which I was using distilled water, but I could use tap water if I felt like it. Here I'm using my well water, and the algae is going nuts bananas because there's no chlorine in it to keep it under control. So that's also something that you want to take into consideration if you're moving from the city and you're moving to another city. The concentration of chlorine in the water might be different. The types of nutrients that are in the water might be different. The amount of the TDS reading might be higher because there might be more in your water. Like our well water is only a TDS reading of around 60. But again, there's no chlorine in the water. So the algae just have a field day. Now, the positive thing about this lovely southern exposure is my Vanda is loving it. Loving it, loving it, loving it. So in my old house, I couldn't get her enough light. And so I would move her outside in the summer, but you know, she would get some sunburn from that. So now, I mean, she's growing a new root. She seems to really enjoy it. So she's happy with more light. But my Renko stylist, I kind of made a little boo-boo with her. But the other good side effects of more light is things are blooming that I was not expecting. Like for instance, this is my Shelob Tolkien. So if you have followed me for a while, you'll know this is pretty much one of my favorite plants. This is the second or third time I've gotten this plant. The first and second time they had fusarium. The first one died without me not even realizing it. The second one, I got it. I didn't realize in time. And then this one, she's been good. She's grown and bloomed a couple times. So she bloomed on this last time. She grew this growth over the winter. And I was like, oh, wow, I'm going to get a Shelob Tolkien spike in the winter. And she didn't spike. And so I was very, very upset because I was like, oh man, this bulb but no spike. And then she started to grow this new growth. And I was like, all right, so in a couple months, this should bloom for me well. I don't know if it's the stronger light or if it's just that it senses it's the right season, but as you can see right there, she is spiking for me. So I always thought that a Shelob Tolkien, once the bulb matured, if it didn't spike, that was it. You weren't going to get a spike. So this bulb has been mature for quite some time, so I was not expecting it to spike, and yet there she is. So super happy about that. Not sure why that's happening, but I'll take it. Also, my Phalaenopsis elegant Karen Aloha. I have had this orchid for years, and she has beautiful, beautiful, I don't even remember. I think they're yellow blooms with red dots on them. I know the name of the orchid. I just haven't seen the blooms in years, so I'm trying to go off of memory here, but you can Google it if you're questioning what the color is. So she hasn't bloomed in years, and looky there, she's gonna bloom. So that's very exciting. And again, it may be the increase in light that I'm finally able to give her. I'm not really sure. Moving up here, they did get a little bit of a cold shock, which did induce quite a few of them to bloom. So maybe that's the case with her as well. Another thing that I noticed from the light levels, which is very interesting because I have two orchids with mottled leaves. I may or may not have recently ordered another one. You'll have to stay tuned for that. But this is my Schilleriana, my Phalaenopsis Schilleriana, and she is growing really well. I had her in really strong light, like Renko stylist light, and she seemed to love it. No signs of burning, nothing wrong with her leaves, happy, growing new root. But then this mini Phalaenopsis with no name, she's some type of hybrid, she has mottled leaves, but you can barely tell now because the increased light level caused her to lose a lot of the mottling on her leaves. So I found that to be interesting. So, you know, keep that in the back of your mind too. If you have an orchid with mottled leaves, sometimes the increased light level will cause the mottling to disappear somewhat. Never knew that. And then, of course, we have our beautiful blooms. So I've shared this one with you recently because she had opened up in my last video, but wow, just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful flowers. Absolutely love the coloration on that. She sparkles. Really pretty, like hot pink, hot purple. Just really, really gorgeous. I have another striped one back here. This is my Fuller's Gold Stripe. This is another one that hasn't bloomed in a while. This orchid bloomed for a long time. So I purchased this as one of my first Phalaenopsis ever. It came with 2 spikes, and those spikes continued to branch and bloom for a good 1.5 years, maybe even 2 years. And then that was it. And it hasn't bloomed in quite a while. So it's probably been a good 1.5 years, 2 years since I've seen blooms on this one. And so this one started to open. We got another bud popping there. So it's doing really, really good. And then this one is the one that I bought that I thought was Joy Fairy Tale, and it's not. The tag said it was, but it's clearly not. So I think they just grabbed the wrong plant. But I love this plant. Love the flower. Love the little, whatever that fancy thing is on the edges. She smells like lemons. Very, very pretty. She's a sequential bloomer, so she usually gets a couple of buds and then a few more buds and then a few more buds. And then, you know, when she decides she's done, she's done. But really happy about her. She's another light lover. I have her right by the glass. And then this is the hybrid that I got, no name, but I named her Diane after my sister-in-law's grandmother. So you can see she's blooming again. Beautiful, vivid, vivid yellow Phalaenopsis. And look at that lip. Look at all the coloration in there. Oh, just love this. And you move it and you see like the iridescence. It's just gorgeous. So really, really enjoying that. So yeah, I just wanted to share that with you so you guys can learn from my mistakes. If you're moving to a new environment, keep in mind that all of your variables that you had, your water, your sunlight, everything, even if you're keeping the same exposure, even if, you know, you're moving to a house that you have Western exposure and your old house had Western exposure, it's different. So just keep that in mind. Try not to burn your plants like I did. I hope you guys are all staying happy and safe, and I will talk to you all next time.